returning from my room upstairs where I check to see if the follicles really are always alive. They always live, I understand.
That's what they tell me.
Yeah. Strangely enough.
Oddly
that is
enough.
Perhaps the most important thing to some people. The most important thing in life to some people, isn't it?
The non-death of the follicle.
Right. You
Yes.
know, your new picture shampoo, from which that line comes, and those folks who have seen it or will see it shortly will understand what we're talking about there, deals with that kind of superficiality where strange things, not strange things, they're common things, but people become involved either in fashion, in hair design,
Yes.
in buttoning their shirt, all kinds of things.
Yes.
And that becomes the most important thing in their lives. And you deal with superficiality a great deal in that motion picture, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. Deal with superficiality and I think a kind of a intermingling of sexual and political hypocrisy.
Hey, that's heavy.
I've said it so many times, it's getting heavier.
Today, you have done 27 interviews today,
Have
I think, or something like that. I mean, God, this is, perhaps is the more exhausting portion of your occupation, isn't it?
No.
Isn't it?
No.
What is?
Trying to get the movie made right. Those decisions, you know, it's decisions that take a lot of energy.
You are the producer, you were writer, you were star, you were everything in this motion picture. Is that the kind of projects you are accepting now? Will you want only to be involved in projects which involve you
I did
in all these areas?
Did this with Bonnie and Clyde a few years ago, and I do it every few years when there's a picture that I need to do it with. They're things that I originate, really. I don't. The word accept doesn't mean...
Well, I mean, you'd still work for a director you
oh,
respected
yeah,
if you had
sure.
another project.
I'd work for a director probably that I didn't respect.
When we sat down here just a couple of moments ago, very kiddingly, I said something about you doing an interview with me, and you started out with a question about my sex life. This came out apparently out of a superficial kind of subconscious statement, but I'm sure it's the kind of thing that you hear so frequently.
No, it came out of the vicious rumors that I've heard about your sex life.
Well, I didn't realize they'd gotten that far.
Yeah.
Do you object to the fact that
No.
you don't have much privacy? That
I have a lot of privacy. I have all I want. All
Do
I
you
want.
really?
Sure I do.
You don't care about people like Rona Barrett last week, for instance?
What did she say?
Oh, I mentioned to you. She said,
Oh, well,
you
that
only
stuff.
relate
Well, that
with
doesn't
people
invade my
below
pri-
the belt, and you tried to rape her when you were 16, and all of that sort of thing.
If that was a rape.
You remember that night, do you?
Oh, I'm trying to remember something. My mother heard her say that on television. My mother's a very, very straight-laced woman and a very, very sweet woman of a little over 70, and she heard Rona Barrett say that. I met Rona Barrett when I...
She says it like a wind-up doll, you know.
I know, she says it over and over again. She used to live with a girl who I probably did try to rape. She lived with a friend of mine in New York and several women that I knew in New York. I should have called them girls because they were very young when I knew them. I think I was 20 or 21 or something like that. And so my mother, who lives in Virginia, saw Rona Barrett on a talk show with talking about her book, and she said that Warren Beatty had tried to rape her, and there was nobody there to deny it. And my mother was talking to me on the telephone the following week, and she told me about this thing, and I said, "Oh, no." She said, "Warren, you wouldn't rape a girl like Rona Barrett, would you?"
Not like Rona Barrett.
But no, I think in defense of the to the charge, the truth is that no, I did not try to rape Rona Barrett, and will not, do not anticipate in the future raping Miss Barrett, and possibly we could proceed to other...
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
We pretty much exhausted that particular thing.
I'm exhausted. Yeah.
Within a day or two of the time the folks see this particular interview, we will have your sister, Shirley MacLaine, on this same show. It's interesting that the similar kinds of attitudes you have, but I guess that's logical. I think the most unusual thing is the tremendous amount of creative ability both of you have shown in one area. Is that an environmental thing too, or is it is that kind of creativity just something that coincidentally happened to be born in two members of the same family? Did you grow up in a kind of family that encouraged that?
Well, yeah, I think so. My mother and father were both musical, interested in the theater. My mother was taught acting. My mother's mother taught acting. My father played the violin, and so on. I think there was probably some amount of frustrated theater, unexpressed wish in the theater, probably, in my family.
I've heard you refer in the last couple of days on at least 4 or 5 occasions to motion pictures as a near art? Is that exactly?
I keep saying that thing, yeah.
What does that mean to you? Why do you say it?
Because it's kind of heavy if you say it's an art form. You invite the response, oh yeah?
Is it a little demeaning, though, or you just, to say a near art? Don't you think movies surpass that?
I do, actually. I think it invites the response that you're giving now. If I call it a near art form, you say, no, it's an art form. I say, thank you very much, and my warmest possible good wishes.
And if you say it the other way around, people, in other words, people are going to challenge you no matter which way you say it, probably.
Well, it's difficult to, yes. It's a collective art form. It's an extremely expensive mud pie. And so I'm actually, if I called it a near art form, stealing a phrase of David Lean's, who's made some of the biggest mud pies ever made and some of the best, and he's certainly an artist.
I've heard you talk about separating your very intense interest in politics and your equally intense but different interest in motion pictures, and how they don't quite mesh together. You don't like to mix them. Do you think someday you will? Have you just not found the proper avenue?
Not so much a question of liking to mix them. I can't mix them. I can't do exactly what I want to do in a film. I can't tell precisely the truth if I have some political goal in mind with it. When you make truthful things in films, you have to be willing to embarrass yourself. You have to be willing to tell something that you wouldn't ordinarily perceive as that which would please the majority of the body politic, and you just do what you think is right. In politics, you got to be much faster on your feet and try to propaganda becomes more a part of what you do in politics. Truthful propaganda.
Being practical.
Trying to bring about some slight change through getting people to compromise, you know.
You've talked about your new motion picture, Shampoo, with great satisfaction, and I know I heard you say in conversation just yesterday, I believe, that you were especially satisfied with the ending, with the whole picture, but especially the ending. That seems to give you a special satisfaction.
I don't think I said that. I'm satisfied with the whole movie.
The whole movie? All elements of it?
Pretty much. As satisfied as I've ever been. This and Bonnie and Clyde, I think, are the 2 films that have given me that feeling. And
you're going on to a project, you have in mind a project that is another totally different kind of direction, don't you?
Well, I don't know if it's you mean for me?
Yes.
Well, maybe it's totally different. I don't know. I don't think anything's totally different, but it's you're talking about a film about John Reed, and I'll be, yeah.
He hardly was an aggressive...
he was no hairdresser.
Hairdresser in Hollywood, no. No, he wasn't a man. It would seem to be a much more serious subject, but I'm sure that you want
I don't think there's
kind of lightness.
I wouldn't say that it's a more serious subject than our own superficiality.
You're right.
It may not be as funny. But Shampoo is not always funny.
No.
It's funny a lot of the time. But it's sad, I think. It's kind of a cruel movie. It's kind of depressing, I think. And but it's also funny. It's mainly funny, I think. I think it's very funny, but it's sad. Like many funny things, there's a lot of hostility and a lot of sadness under it.
You're getting yourself into the corner explaining it that all of us have had trying to discuss it with each other.
Right.
But it's a fine motion picture. Warren, thank you very much for talking with us.
Thank you.
We'll be back in a moment.